I was 32 the year everything changed. There's a stillness to November that I used to love. The bare trees silhouetted against gray skies, the way the air turns crisp and smells like wood smoke and distant snow. It was my favorite time of year. Comforting. Familiar. And for most of my life, Thanksgiving was my cornerstone of peace. My family's annual reset button. My parents, Evelyn and Thomas, were in their mid-50s and still as in love as they were when I was a child. They bickered over pie crusts and turkey-based times, but there was never a crack in their bond. Their home, our home, was a modest colonial outside of Asheville, wrapped in ivy and memory. It was the kind of place that made you forget time passed. Daniel and I had been engaged for 7 months. I met him at a networking event for young professionals. He stood out not just because he was handsome but because he listened. Really listened. Our connection grew slowly, steadily, and before long, it felt like he had always been part of my world. My parents adored him. My friends approved. Even Lila, my younger sister, chaotic, effervescent Lila, seemed genuinely happy for me. Or so I thought. Lila had always been the wild card. 4 years my junior, she never colored inside the lines. Where I was the planner, the responsible older daughter, Lila was the firework. She bounced between jobs, cities, and boyfriends like someone changing playlists. But she had charm. A kind of bright-eyed boldness that people mistook for confidence. Underneath, though, she was fragile and unpredictable. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Lila arrived at our parents' house first. She sent me a picture of the place already transformed. Pumpkins on the steps, golden wreath on the door, our father stringing up amber lights with a goofy smile. Daniel and I were driving up the next day. I felt the familiar flutter of excitement in my chest. This was our first Thanksgiving as an engaged couple. The beginning of something. I had no idea what was waiting for me. The house was thick with the aroma of roasted turkey, buttery mashed potatoes, and spiced yams. Laughter rolled from the living room, where old cousins exchanged inside jokes over a game of charades. Plates clattered, wine glasses clinked. From the outside it was the perfect Thanksgiving. But for me, something buzzed beneath the surface. A restlessness. A low hum of unease that had been building for weeks but now roared just behind my ribs like a warning siren I couldn't quite shut off. I stood in the kitchen, wiping my hands on a dish towel. My mother was arranging the cornbread stuffing with precise elegance, humming a hymn under her breath. My father was somewhere on the back porch with Uncle Ray, arguing politics over scotch and cigars. "Ava, honey, pass me the cranberry sauce," my mom called without turning around. I handed it to her, watching the familiar silver bangles on her wrist catch the light. For a second I almost said it, blurted out that something was wrong. But what would I even say? That my fiancé had been distant. That my sister had been acting weirdly secretive. Her phone practically glued to her palm every time I walked into the room. I swallowed the words and smiled instead. Dinner was announced with the usual ringing of the antique bell Dad insisted on using, as if we were summoning royalty instead of a half-chaotic, mismatched group of relatives. Everyone gathered around the long dining table, laden with food, candles flickering between platters like whispers. Daniel, my fiancé, took the seat next to me, flashing his perfect practiced smile. His hand found mine under the table, and instinctively I let him hold it. But it felt foreign now. Like I was grasping the hand of a stranger dressed in someone I used to know. Layla, my younger sister, slid into the seat across from us. She wore a deep green dress, hair pulled back just enough to look elegant but carefree. Her laughter rang louder than usual, her eyes flicking to Daniel more than once. I watched her more closely now. Halfway through dinner, Daniel reached to pour her more wine, and for a moment their hands brushed. It was subtle, ordinary to anyone else. But I saw it, the way his fingertips lingered on her wrist, the way she looked away too fast. A fissure cracked through me. Conversation spun on around me. Dad retelling the story of how he once got lost in Montreal, Layla giggling, Mom playfully scolding him for exaggerating again. But I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was the sound of my own breath catching in my chest. Then came dessert. It was Layla who brought out the pecan pie. My favorite. Always had been. She set it down in front of me with a smile too bright, too rehearsed. "I made this one for you, sis," she said. I stared at her, feeling my heart begin to beat harder. Something about the way she said it, like an apology wrapped in sweetness. "Thank you," I replied, my voice low. Daniel reached over to grab a slice, and I noticed his phone light up beside him on the table. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was that little voice inside, the one I'd been silencing for weeks. Picked up his phone. He didn't stop me. That should have been my second clue. I tapped the screen. A message preview still visible despite the lock. From Layla. "Wish I was sitting next to you instead." The room blurred. Everything became muffled, like someone had turned the volume down on life. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping across the hardwood like a scream. "Ava?" Mom asked, her voice uncertain. But I didn't answer. I turned the phone toward Daniel, held it up like evidence. Layla's eyes widened. She froze. "Want to explain this?" I asked. To come." The silence that followed felt like the world holding its breath. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. Layla's voice cracked first. "Ava, I can explain." "No," I said, cutting her off. Don't insult me by trying." The family looked on in shock. My parents' faces had gone pale. The cousins had stopped mid-chew. The hum of joy that had filled the house minutes ago evaporated like steam on cold glass. I backed away from the table. I could feel tears burning, but I refused to let them fall here. Not in front of them. My mother stood up, reaching for me. "Sweetheart, wait, please. Let's talk." "What is there to talk about?" I asked, my voice rising now, sharp with pain. "That my sister and fiancé have been sneaking behind my back. That I was too blind to see it." Dad stood too. "It's Thanksgiving. Let's not do this here." I laughed. Bitter. Cold. "Of course. God forbid we disrupt the perfect family dinner." My mother's voice broke. "Ava, we are not perfect. But this doesn't have to destroy us. You're sisters. You need to forgive." "Forgive?" I turned to her. "You're already asking me to forgive. You don't even want to hear the whole truth first." I want us to stay together. As a family." I looked at Layla. Her face crumpled. She wasn't crying though, just trembling. Daniel finally spoke. "It wasn't supposed to happen." "Then why did it?" Snap. He didn't answer. I nodded slowly. "I need air." And I walked out the front door. Into the night. Into the kind of silence that's only broken when your world has collapsed around you. The air outside was cold, almost biting, but I welcomed it. I needed something sharp, something real, to remind me that I wasn't trapped in a nightmare. I sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around my knees, trying to keep myself from shaking. But it wasn't the November chill that rattled me. It was the betrayal. The kind that doesn't just break your heart. It cracks your bones, pulls the air from your lungs, and makes you question everything you thought was sacred. Behind me, the voices inside the house buzzed like distant static. A low hum of hushed arguments, anxious explanations, and footsteps crossing hardwood with increasing urgency. Then the door creaked open. I didn't turn around. Layla's voice was quiet. "Can I sit?" I didn't answer. But she sat anyway. Just 2 feet between us, yet it felt like miles. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "That line again," I muttered. It started small. Harmless texts. Late-night talks. "You were always so busy," and he listened. I turned toward her, eyes narrowing. "So that's your excuse?" "I was busy." "That's how you justify betraying your sister?" Layla's throat bobbed as she swallowed. "I'm not justifying it. I know it was wrong. I hate myself for it." "You don't hate yourself enough," I said coldly. "Because you still came here, sat across from me, smiled at me, served me pie like everything was normal." Tears slid silently down her cheek, but I felt nothing. You were supposed to be my sister, I said, voice cracking now. My best friend. I told you everything. Every fight Daniel and I had, every doubt I had about our relationship. And you used that. I didn't plan it. But you didn't stop it. Silence stretched between us again, long and thick. Layla wiped her face, sniffled and whispered, I wanted to tell you 100 times. But I was scared. Scared of losing me. Scoff. You already did. She didn't respond. The door creaked again. This time it was my mom. Sweetheart, she began softly, standing at the threshold, her hands wringing together. Not now, Mom. She stepped forward anyway. I know you're hurting. And I'm not saying what they did is okay. But she's your sister. And was your fiancé. You built something with him. Maybe there's something still worth saving. I looked up at her, stunned. You're serious. I'm saying. Sometimes in life the people who hurt us most are the ones we love most. That's the cruel twist of it. But love, real love, requires grace. I stood up. My voice didn't rise, but it was steel. No, real love doesn't come with betrayal attached. And grace. Grace isn't permission. It's not silence. It's not sitting at a table and pretending everything is okay for the sake of tradition. My mother's face fell. I could see the tension in her jaw. How badly she wanted to fix it all, wrap it up in prayer and platitudes and pretend. I know what you're trying to do, I said gently. You think if I forgive them fast enough we can get back to normal. But normal is gone. It died the second Layla and Daniel chose themselves over me. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stopped her. I will heal. But not today. And not by making everyone else comfortable. I turned to Layla one last time. I hope you figure out why you did it. I hope you face it fully and don't hide behind your shame. But I can't be your sister right now. I need space. I need distance. Layla was crying openly now, her voice shaking. Please don't cut me off forever. I don't know what forever looks like yet, I said honestly. But today I choose myself. And with that I walked down the steps, past the rose bushes we planted when we were kids, past the car where Daniel once carved our initials into the window fog. I got into my car, turned the key, and let the silence wrap around me like a promise. For the first time in weeks I felt something shift. Not peace. Not yet. But power. The kind that comes when you stop begging to be chosen, and choose yourself instead. It had been 26 days since that night. 26 days since I walked away from my parents' porch, the scent of roasted turkey and burnt trust still clinging to my clothes. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was jagged and restless, an ache in my chest I couldn't name. I thought leaving would give me immediate clarity like flipping a switch. Instead it gave me space. And space can be loud in its own way. I moved into a short-term rental across town, a one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and a window view of a gas station. It was temporary like everything felt lately. My mornings became ritual. Coffee in a chipped mug, a half-hearted journal entry, and hours of staring at job postings I had no energy to pursue. I wasn't ready for people, for polite small talk, for pity in their eyes. Therapy helped. Not right away. At first, I sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed, feeding the therapist the same vague phrases I'd memorized from years of watching emotionally guarded women on TV. I'm fine. It just caught me off guard. I'm trying to move on. But Dr. Elaine didn't bite. She waited, prodded softly. And one Tuesday morning, in the middle of a sentence about betrayal, I broke open. All the ugly parts came out. The jealousy, the humiliation, the guilt that I didn't see it coming. She didn't rush to fix me. She just listened. And for the first time I felt heard without being handled. I started walking again. Not for fitness, just to breathe. The park near my apartment had a broken fountain and overgrown trails, but it was quiet, and quiet felt sacred now. One afternoon, while sitting on a worn bench, I noticed an older woman in a rust-colored coat sketching birds from afar. She had a peaceful air about her, like someone who had made peace with solitude. We nodded at each other, the kind of silent hello you offer strangers you hope to see again. Over the next few days, our paths crossed often enough that I finally asked her name. "Dahlia," she said, smiling. "Like the flower." "And you?" "Ava." She tilted her head. "You carry a lot in your shoulders, Ava. Life's been heavy." I blinked, caught off guard. "Something like that." She didn't pry. Just smiled and returned to her sketchbook. But before she left that day, she said something I haven't forgotten. "People think healing looks like putting yourself back together," she said. "But sometimes it's about letting go of the pieces that no longer belong." Caleb reached out once. Short email. No subject. Just 2 lines. "I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, I don't think I ever will, fully, but because his closure wasn't my responsibility. I didn't need to co-write the final chapter with him. I could end it myself. Layla tried to. Text. Voicemails. A letter slipped under my apartment door. "Miss you. I dream about us as kids. I was stupid, Ava. Please don't let this be forever." That one hurt more. 'Cause she was my past. My history. And even when people break you, memories of playing hide and seek, whispering secrets under bedsheets, and late-night ice cream runs don't just disappear. But I still didn't answer. Not yet. Some bridges take longer to cross, and some never get rebuilt at all. One night, I sat by the window, legs curled under me, watching cars blur past below. The ache was still there, but it didn't feel like drowning anymore. More like a bruise. Tender but healing. I lit a candle, wrote in my journal, and somewhere between page 4 and 5, I wrote something that surprised me. "I don't know who I'll become after this, but maybe that's the gift in it all. The freedom to build something entirely mine. No shadows, no borrowed pieces. Just me." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I closed the book and whispered aloud to no one in particular. "I'm still here." The world didn't change, but I did. Mornings stopped feeling like something to survive. I started waking up before my alarm, not because I had somewhere to be, but because the silence in my apartment had softened into something I could live with. I didn't dread the stillness anymore. I welcomed it even. There was a local bookstore 5 blocks down. One of those hole-in-the-wall gems with crooked shelves and the scent of forgotten paper. I wandered in one rainy Tuesday, mostly to avoid the downpour, and ended up staying for 3 hours. The owner, a silver-haired man named Howard with half-moon glasses and a cardigan full of ink stains, noticed me immediately. "You look like someone who needs a book more than coffee," he said. Smiled. "Is it that obvious?" He handed me a worn copy of Letters to a Young Poet. "Start here. Don't rush through it." I didn't. I read each letter slowly, deliberately, savoring the pauses between sentences like prayer. Rilke's words felt like someone cupping my chin gently and telling me to keep going. That solitude wasn't punishment, it was soil. That maybe this ache inside me wasn't brokenness, but space being made for something else. I began writing again. Not for deadlines or approval. Just scribbles in the margins of receipts, torn journal pages, and eventually, clean notebooks that I filled like water finding its level. Felt indulgent at first, selfish almost, to write without anyone watching. But slowly the stories returned. Not all of them were about betrayal or heartbreak. Some were about women who ran away and found new names in quiet towns. Others about girls who grew wings from scars. I even joined a writing circle Dahlia invited me to. We met every other Friday in the back room of a pottery studio, surrounded by mismatched chairs and the hum of old jazz records. They didn't know my history. They only knew my words. And that anonymity was a gift. One evening, after the group had wrapped up, a man lingered behind as I packed up. "Hey," he said, a little hesitant. "You read that piece about the woman in the lighthouse, right?" He nodded. "I just wanted to say it moved me. The part where she finally stops waiting for someone to return and lights the beacon for herself instead. That hit hard." I blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you. I'm Eli, by the way." "Ava." We shook hands, just that. No spark, no cinematic music cue. But something steady, gentle, enforced. Weeks passed, then months. I saw my parents again eventually. Not because I had fully forgiven them, but because something inside me had shifted. I didn't go to offer explanations or hear excuses. I went to reclaim my place at the table. Not for anyone else's comfort, but for my own. My mother hugged me tightly, trembling. My father looked away, ashamed but relieved. Talk. Carefully. Honestly. They apologized. Not in the vague, sweeping way they had before, but with tears, specifics, and pauses that told me they'd sat in their own discomfort too. I didn't promise reconciliation. But I left with a heart less heavy. And Layla. I haven't seen her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I think of her sometimes. On my walks or when I hear a song we once danced to in our teens. There's grief in that kind of loss. A sibling-shaped void you can't replace. But there's also peace in choosing your own wholeness over someone else's comfort. One spring morning, I opened the windows and let the breeze rush in. My small apartment smelled of lavender and fresh paper. I looked around, at the stack of notebooks, the tiny potted fern I hadn't killed yet, the photos I'd finally put up on the wall, just of me this time, and I felt a strange flutter in my chest. Joy. Not loud or grand. Just present. Life. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled and whispered to the morning air. I'm not who I was. And that's a good thing. The seasons changed again. As they always do. Spring melted into summer. And my world grew a little wider each day. The woman I saw in the mirror now wasn't someone I pitied. She was someone I respected. Not because she had it all figured out, but because she had stayed. She had endured. She had learned to love her own company and to trust her own voice. My writing found its rhythm. I started submitting again. Essays, short stories, fragments of truth wrapped in fiction. Some were published. Others weren't. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was, I was creating. One afternoon I got a message from Eli. He'd found a small cabin by the lake where he said he wrote best. Off the grid, surrounded by nothing but trees, stillness and sky. You should come up sometime, he wrote. There's a porch swing with your name on it. I didn't reply right away. Not because I wasn't tempted, but because I was finally learning to take my time. To say yes when I was ready. Not when I was afraid I'd lose something if I didn't. Then came the unexpected message. From Layla. It had been nearly a year. I sat staring at her name on my screen. The words she sent weren't long. But they landed like stones in water, rippling far beyond the surface. Ava, I don't expect a response. I just want you to know I've been in therapy. I know what I did. I know how I broke you, and I live with that every day. I betrayed you, not just as a sister, but as someone who claimed to love you. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Hope you're okay. I hope you're better than okay. You deserved so much better from both of us. I read it twice. Then a third time. There was a time when something like that would have sent me into a tailspin. Not now. Now I felt the ache of it, sure, but it didn't consume me. I didn't respond. Not out of bitterness. But because her healing was hers. And mine. Was mine. A few weeks later, I stood on that porch swing by the lake, the air humming with crickets and summer's gentle breath. Eli brought me a mug of tea, didn't ask too many questions, and just sat beside me in silence. I never thought I'd be here, I said softly. Where? A cabin in the woods, he teased. No, mean here. Peace. After everything. He turned to look at me. You earned it. He nodded. Yeah, I did. I never married. At least not in the traditional sense. I married freedom. Creativity. Myself. My life didn't follow the path I thought it would. It went off-road, hit every bump, and still made it. Not untouched. But unbroken. Not perfect. A whole. Years from now, someone will ask me if I ever forgave her. My sister. My parents. And I'll say, I forgave myself first. I forgave myself for staying too long. For doubting my worth. for trusting people who didn't deserve it. And maybe, in that forgiveness, I found enough space to let go of the rest. Not because they earned it, but because I refused to carry their weight anymore. Because this life, my life, belongs to me now. And I intend to live it with every ounce of truth I have left.